Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to just sort of talk about creative ramblings of sort of where I'm at in this moment, because it changes from day to day creatively. And I'm sort of in this sort of inward movement today. It might change within the next few days, but I've been feeling less inclined to actually post. Not because I don't have anything to share, but I haven't felt the divine impulse to actually share. So I've been having creative ideas though for like music videos and like cover songs that I want to do. And that's been kind of fun. And a lot of that incorporates like dancing into it. So that's been fun because I do dance around my house and stuff. And I would consider a former version of myself to be a dancer, but the current version of myself is like an ex-dancer per se. So a lot of times when I get visions and sort of divine downloads about, creative ideas that I want to play with, it is incorporating me dancing. So it's interesting. But one of the things I was sort of just talking to my divine team about is just sort of where I'm at creatively is I was saying, I miss being creative in the old way of being creative when I was younger. And my divine team, of course, was like correcting me. They're like, well, you're already creative, beloved. But I was like, yeah, but I think as an adult, especially trying or like working towards building a career as an artist, there's this sort of impetus or this sort of pressure to always be creative in a certain way or whatever to get likes, and you're sort of outwardly focused versus inwardly focused and doing what you love to do. Whereas when I was younger, as a child or a teenager or whatever, always creating, I created because it was sort of my purpose and my way of expressing myself. It wasn't in order to do anything. It was just, this is what I do because I do it, right? The birds sing and chirp because that's what they're here to do, right? So sort of like me creating was that way. And my spirit fam was just sort of like, yeah, of course, you can still do that. Like, there's no one stopping you outside of you. And I was like, true. The only person stopping me is me. So it brought up, just this idea of why do we do that? Like, why do many of us as artists, it's a delicate balance because it's sort of this whole idea of commercializing your music or commercializing your art or whatever form your creativity takes, whether that's a dancer, actor, singer, songwriter, poet, whatever, right? Commercializing your art in a way that you can be compensated for it, right? But not sort of exploiting it or contorting it in a way to where you're doing a disservice to the art for commercial purposes, right? So how do you stay genuine? It's sort of that dichotomy and that contrast of staying genuine as an artist and coming from the heart versus being who you truly are versus sort of commercializing and creating a product out of what you do, So, my higher self's guidance is always like, don't worry about the commercializing aspect. That will naturally happen as a result of you just creating. So I'm going to follow that. But it's also been, living in this sort of social media world and not comparing yourself to others because there's so many brilliant artists out there and so many people who inspire me, who I'm inspired by. And as an artist and a creative, it can be challenging if you don't know who you are as a divine being beyond just being this fleshly earth suit, to not compare yourself to others, right? So sometimes I find myself just kind of going into a bubble and I find myself not wanting to be on social media. Like there'll be days where I just don't even want to check it. I don't want to look at it. I don't want to see who did anything. I have that energy about me. And I think it's because it's sort of this sort of, I don't want to call it self-preservation, but for lack of not having a better word, it's sort of this self-preservation aspect of me where I just have this call to go inward and only focus on me and what I'm here to do and what I'm here to create and not be always looking outside of myself for what other people have created and what's being done and right? And so you can sort of lose yourself and lose your voice in this sea of millions of other beautiful, talented artists when you don't have that sort of sacred space to come back home to. And I think it's very important, I think, as artists, for us to protect that voice, for us to protect who we are and our creative insights and our own creative perceptions, because that's what makes us unique as artists, is being able to share our gifts with the world and share our unique perspectives of the world and life and general, whatever it is that we talk about through our own unique lens, right? That's what allows us for people to resonate with us, because we add that level of authenticity that another person doesn't have. Like, your flavor of authenticity is going to be all your own, because you're the only you there is on the planet in this current incarnation, right? So, or in this current parallel reality. We're not going to go down that rabbit hole, but anyways. So but yeah, so it's interesting to me, that dynamic of just being true to yourself and knowing when to tune in. And it's interesting too, because I remember when YouTube and Instagram and all these sort of social media platforms came out. And before they came out, I was already an artist. I was already creating and stuff like that. So I didn't really utilize them to my benefit, because I wasn't really, not that I wasn't into technology, but I was just so old school, where I was trying to make it as a musician the old-fashioned way of, like, going locally, doing a lot of live shows and all that other stuff, right? And so I didn't really use social media like that. But what I'm finding is finding my sort of own footing in this world, and how do I want to show up authentically, and what do I have to say, what do I want to bring to the table, sort of energy, and being real and authentic with that, without sort of, I'm trying to find the word for, it's not exploiting, exploitation sort of genuinely means where you're taking something and you're like perverting it, right? I guess I'm not perverting my art, is what I guess I'm trying to say, is where I'm not perverting what I do in order to get likes and thumbs up and thumbs down and all that other stuff, but I'm just being who I am, and letting that be enough, if that makes sense. So these are thoughts that I have been thinking about, like, what is the role of creativity in my life at this point? And clearly from, my last video, I was talking about my approach is definitely entrepreneurial. But at the same time, I think one of the things that I was struggling with, because I'm sort of in a couple different creative business programs, music business programs that, ask you to get your brand clear and all this other stuff that I knew from as a business owner and as a life coach and health coach and stuff in my other businesses, right? You focus in on your brand as a brand strategist and stuff. I've done this, right, for many other businesses. But when it comes to being an artist, I find it to be challenging, because I feel like such a mosaic soul when it comes to creating. And I'm thinking of my friend right now who said some really wise words to me a few weeks ago. And he was like, I wouldn't focus on that. I would just focus on creating and just doing you, and not worrying about what your brand is, or how are you going to come across to people. I would just do you, put yourself out there, and then your brand will naturally emerge as you continue to be yourself online, right? And I was like, that is actually quite potent information and really great advice, because when you're first starting out, and I'm not first starting out per se, I'm like restarting, as I said in my last video, but when you're first starting out, for lack of whatever, is perversion of the art form can happen so easily when you don't protect your own unique voice, right? When you don't find your voice and when you don't establish your voice. And so I'm thinking, for my own journey, being able to just establish my voice as an artist and just put songs out, put music out, put art out, put poetry, photography, all the things, out, is how my style or brand will naturally emerge. So there's certain themes that naturally emerge in the things that I'm naturally attracted to. So like as an artist, a visual artist, I'm naturally attracted to nature. I'm naturally attracted to spirituality. I'm naturally attracted to fantasy, realism, occult symbolism and things of that nature. So that I know is going to be reflected. I'm also attracted to abstract art as well. But as a musician, I'm also attracted to like at least 5 different genres, if not more, from soul, pop, R&B, jazz, Caribbean, reggae, rock. Like I have the whole gamut in my song collection, right? So I was talking to another music person as I'm like working on another song to get it produced professionally. And so on my profile, I was like filling out that I'm like pop, soul, alternative or whatever. But I was like, the song that I'm writing has more of a rock feel, right? A pop rock feel. And she was like, yeah, that's so interesting. But I thought you said you were a soul. And I was like, yeah, I don't know. It's really interesting to like put myself into a genre. It's like when you think of people like, and I'm not like comparing myself to these people, but they're easy reference points for people because most people know these artists. But people like Michael Jackson or Rihanna or Beyonce or people like that, right? Like they are sort of genre defying, right? If you listen to album to album, it might be labeled as pop, but they have elements of R&B, rock, folk, Caribbean, world music, whatever. So I'm sort of more of that, element in the sense that a lot of my music, those are the artists, from Whitney to Celine Dion to, those are the artists that I grew up listening to. So they were multi-genre. So I naturally write that way. Like when I write a song, I don't think, oh, this is going to be an R&B song, right? Like, or I'm like, oh, this is going to be a rock song, or oh, this is going to be a folk song. Like I just write the song, and whatever the melody is sort of dictates the feel, and I'm hearing the music in my head, and that's dictating the actual genre and style of that music. So I feel like, I'm just going to take my friend's advice and really just do that, because it's hard. It's not hard. It's challenging for me to try to box myself into a genre just so other people can understand what I do. I feel like how I feel as an artist right now is like, yo, if you fucking vibe with me, you just vibe with me. And if you don't, you don't. Like each song is going to be its own unique piece of art, So I don't want to be like, oh, well, I am this type of artist. And so I get why people do that, because it's easy to put you into a category for the Billboard charts and all that stuff. And even though that might someday be part of my dream, at this stage in my journey, it's not like, oh, I really want to focus on being an R&B artist. That way I can be put into the Billboard charts and they can easily categorize me. I'm not going to do that right now. I think I just want to build a fan base around me as a brand, Rachael Alexander brand, I think, and let the music speak for itself and the content speak for itself, Because I think also another thing that I was mentioning to the lady that I was speaking to the other day, who's helping me get my music produced professionally, was a lot of artists that I listen to are multi-genre, but I feel like a lot of listeners are the same way. Like, just like how I'm a multi-genre listener, I feel like there are a lot of artists who are that way. So it's not like when I listen to a Michael Jackson song or a Rihanna album and stuff like that, I'm skipping over all the rock songs, or I'm skipping over all the R&B songs because I only like the rock song. Like, I'm listening to the whole album because it's great music, right? Same thing with Lady Gaga. She's also multi-genre. So it's like, that's just how I feel like there are a lot of listeners who are like that. They label it as pop, but pop is just popular music, right? So you can have popular music from people like Paramore, who's like, more, not indie rock, punk rock, to, people who are, I can't even think of anybody else. I'm trying to think of other artists who are like Chris Brown, who's like R&B, or, a little hip hop or whatever. So I feel like popular music is just, pop music is popular music. So I feel like that's sort of the genre that I am in, even though there's other layers of genres that are in there. And I feel like whoever my super fans will be in the near future will be multi-genre listeners, multi-genre fans because that's how they listen to music too. Like if you look at my Apple Music playlist, I literally have everything from classical, rock, R&B, soca, reggae, Latin, jazz. Like I listen to so many things. So I'm like, how I grew up that way, right? I went to school for music. So it's like I have all these different influences. I wasn't one of those artists who was just like, oh, I just found my little nook over here. Like I was never that artist. And I think that always sort of troubled me, or, even when I was pursuing it full time, back in the day, I was like trying to fit myself into a specific genre. And I think I don't care about that anymore. Like, I think I'm just going to let the music speak for itself and let people resonate with that and just do that, because I feel like, doing anything else outside of that is just really going to pervert my music at this point in time, or really it's just going to shut down my creativity, and I don't want to do that. I want my creativity to continue to awaken and expand, and this sort of inward movement, I think, is what is helping me to recognize that I can be all of me. And I think that's the whole point of this whole being a mosaic soul, right? Like I'm here to be multi-passionate, multi-talented, curious. So multi-creative, right? So I think that's the direction I'm going in. And I think that's the creative ramblings I wanted to share. Like, okay, am I going to confidently move into the direction of my heart and soul? Because clearly I wouldn't be feeling this way if I didn't feel, the pull. I feel that, that energetic pull, that creative pull towards different songs or different projects. And they're all different genres, and sometimes they're similar genres too. But that's what I'm recognizing, is that I don't have to like fit into a box. I can just be me and let other people resonate with whatever it is that I'm doing. So yeah, I think that's the creative ramblings that I wanted to share today. And I'd love to hear from you guys. If you are an artist of any sort and kind, do you find it difficult to, categorize yourself or to fit into a box as well? And if you don't, if you are one of those people who are like, nah, I'm solid rock, or I'm solid R&B, or I'm, I'd love to hear from you too. So there's no judgment either way. I think it's beautiful, and we're all here, divine beings here, having different human experiences. But that's just sort of my own unique human perspective or human experience, as my own artistry continues to blossom and bloom, as this, my own little version of my mosaic soulness, is that I'm okay with being multi. I'm okay with that. And I think even just having this talk is making me realize how okay I am with that. So the journey continues. If you are resonating and vibing with this video, then definitely give it a thumbs up, subscribe, like, share, all the greatness, and definitely join my tribe in the link in the description box below.